My name is Ellen. Welcome to the Virtual Y. If you're joining us on Facebook, I'm really excited that you're here today. This is just a sample of all of the classes that we have available on Virtual Y. So visit ymcanorth.org, click on the virtual button, and you can learn all about our $9.99 a month membership. So you can, participate in 40 classes a week, more than 40. We're always going live with 40 or more classes a week, and then we have 4,000 plus classes available on demand. So every time we launch a new class live, it goes into our on-demand library. So we just have so many resources available for you, all formats. So this is a sample, and what we'll focus on today is stretching the muscles and massaging the tissues and the muscles in our body to bring a sense of relief to tight muscles. But also, I have a little special feature today too. So today we'll focus on, in particular, a certain type of exercise, how to warm up for the exercise. I just want to talk a little bit about warming up for exercise. So in general, any exercise. And then our feature today is going to be on hips, hamstrings. So for exercisers, people that run, people that jog, people that walk, people that hike, people that cycle. It's a lot of hip flexion. It's a lot of hamstrings, and it's a lot of neutral hip, a lot of hips and hammies, quads, hamstrings, calves, feet. So lots of stuff to talk about today. So welcome, I'm glad you're here. I've got all kinds of stuff here today. So if you have a really large fitness ball, that's a wonderful thing we can stretch on. We don't have to do like ab crunches on it today. So we won't do ab crunches. Grab a big ball if you have a big ball. You don't have to use it today if you don't have one. Don't worry about it. Foam roller is gonna be featured in just every week of our practice. So foam roller is good to have. You can get foam rollers in more firm. This one here is a real firm foam roller, but you can get them a little bit softer as well. It's nice to have a soft one and a firm one if you have the opportunity to get more than one. Otherwise, just when you're finding one, try it out if you can and see what you think. See if you like it. Grab a yoga block too if you have a yoga block. Something to put our foot up on if you don't have a yoga block. I'm sure you can find something to elevate your toes on so we can get a good stretch in our calves. And then also I've got a little lacrosse ball. You could use a racquetball. Actually, this is a racquetball today. Could be a racquetball, could be a massage ball, could be a tennis ball. Lacrosse balls are ideal. And then a yoga strap too. Cool. All right, let's start standing. So thinking about if we are going to show up to start exercising. Maybe we're just stepping out the door to go for a run. Maybe we like to go on walks with friends, do speed walking. Maybe we jog. Maybe we like going on hikes. Maybe we like cycling. So whatever it is, think about this movement over and over again. With the hip, it's flexion. So we're using muscles here to pull the body, and then extend the leg. That's gonna use different muscles as well. So really good to get the body warm for whatever movement that we're gonna be doing. So if it's not running, whatever exercise it is, if it's weightlifting, think about the movements that you're gonna be doing and mimic some of those movements. Stretch the body, get the muscles warm for those movements. So I've got a block here. I'm gonna put my toes up on the block. You could use anything else. And just get a nice flex in your foot and bend the knee a little bit, lean into it, and see if you can feel a stretch up the back side of your leg, the calf, the shin. So I like to first find that stretch, and then you might even extend the leg a little bit longer, kind of lean into it so the hip is above the heel. See what feels good in your body. Depends on how tight that muscle is, but it's just good to stretch it out a little bit before flexing and extending at the ankle. Same thing here, I'm turning my toe under and I'm stretching the front of the leg. I can actually feel this stretch all the way up into my upper leg, all the way down the lower leg and the foot. So warm up both feet this way, just give them a little stretch. So these muscles won't be cold when we start exercising. We're not gonna shock those muscles and just tear the muscle fibers. They're warm, we're getting them ready for a little bit of movement. So just a quick little stretch there. And then since we're going to be quad heavy on this movement, let's stretch the quad. So pull your heel back by your seat, and you might even be able to feel the stretch through the hip flexor as well. So if you have a bigger back bend, see how I've got a bigger back bend here? I will still feel it, but try tucking the tail. You'll probably feel a little bit more. So if I have a more neutral pelvis, I'm going to feel a good stretch on the quad. So these are just nice ways to warm up before you go for a run. Just grab the heel, pull it to your seat, both legs, warm up the quads a little bit. Beautiful. I like to do a few little hip circles. Just get the hips ready to move through a range of motion. Beautiful. And then let's stretch the hamstrings. Reach up and then fold forward, forward fold. So we're stretching back of legs. You can bend the knees a little bit here. All the way up. All right, so those are some good muscles to stretch for running, but let's do a little more dynamic movement. So bending into one knee and lunging. This is going to stretch. It's using the muscular strength, but also stretching the quad. So think about pressing pelvis forward and stretching the quad. So this is a lunge. And you can do that with both legs. Lunges are great stretches. See, it's quick and easy. Beautiful. All right, and then let's do a little bit of dynamic movement. So just get a little movement into it. So this is a stepping forward into a lunge. Do that with both legs a few times. Just getting the body ready to move. So we're increasing a little bit, a little more dynamic. Maybe left, right a few times. And then if I'm going to be doing it a little more rapidly, maybe I'll just jog. Maybe I'll do a little jogging. Maybe I'll do some high knees. So just get the heart rate up as well. So those are good warm-ups for all that. Let's move on. All right, so rolling the bottom of the foot. Now think in terms of after, if you do these exercises a lot, you're going to probably want to do this a couple times a week at least. I would say if you're running every day, or if you're running 3-4 times a week, you probably want to find a little relief for those tight muscles. So I like to start in the bottom of the foot. We always put our feet in shoes. And the shoes support the foot. They support the feet so that they don't move around a lot. They give us some good support. So we want to use the foot. We want to use the muscles. We want to warm up and kind of stretch out and move the joints around in the feet too. So I like to start by rolling the bottom of the foot with the little ball. So I'm using a racquetball. It's a little bit soft. I wish I had a solid ball. I wish I had a lacrosse ball, and I don't happen to have one today. So I'm just using what I've got. But it's nice to have an assortment. So feel free to collect balls. All right, let's move on. All right, coming on down to the mat, and we'll grab that foam roller. So let's start with the foam roller perpendicular on the mat. And we'll lie back and start loosening up the back body. So we're gonna loosen up our glutes and our hamstrings and our low back. Those muscles are probably gonna be kind of tight. So just starting here, if you lean back so your waist is up to the foam roller and your forearms are resting on the roller, just start to tip your body a little bit left and right. So I'm dropping the knees, but I'm also rolling the body a little bit, and I'm massaging that low back. I'm getting a nice kind of a little stretch here too, like a little spinal twist if you let the knees drop off a little further to each side. But something else that I'm noticing as I'm doing this is that my glute, I'm sitting right on top of my glutes, my seat, those are getting a little massage too just by tipping my body left to right. You don't even need a foam roller. All right, so that's a good place to start. Wherever that roller's pressing, you're getting that little massage, so you can move it around a little bit. Beautiful. And then I'm going to move the foam roller up a little higher and just start on the shoulder blades. So lie back so that the shoulder blades are resting on the roller. Hold anything out of the way like a ponytail. Hoodies, take a hoodie off. It's not easy to foam roll in a hoodie unless you're only doing your legs. So a little bit more tightly fitted clothing is going to roll a little bit easier. Otherwise you just get tangled up in your roller. So up and down over the shoulder blades, we're just starting by loosening up the back body. So loosening up the glutes. Glutes are part of the posterior chain and the hamstrings. So I'm just doing a quick little pass over the upper back and the lower back so that I can work my way down to the seat. So that's next, moving to sit on the foam roller. So as we're doing this, if you're doing something and I'm not spending as long on it as you feel like you need. Spend a little bit longer on it. So you can pause the video, do your little rolling a little bit longer. You know, give it at least a minute or more. You can give it a couple minutes on each of the parts where it feels really good to massage. So I'm sitting off to one side and just rolling up and over the glute, down and under, up and over, down and under. And this is the gluteus maximus, the big back pocket muscle. So you can plant both feet and just push, plant one hand, push away from the earth a little bit. Takes a little bit of core strength too, so you get a little bit of exercise pushing away from the earth, but it takes a little bit of the body weight off. So if you're rolling something that's really, really tight, that feels like a little too much sensation, you might plant both feet. Some things though, in order to loosen them up, particularly the quads, and we'll get to the quads, it's really, you just kind of have to get through it. So you could try a softer foam roller. This black one's real firm. I've seen the blue foam roller. There's a pink foam roller I've seen. They're a little bit softer, so feel it out. But you might extend one of the legs long. So whatever seat you're on, that leg extends long. And then you can roll more to the side hip. So this muscle here, the side hip muscles, just a quick touch on these. If you're doing the repetitive motion with neutral hips, you're probably not working that one a whole lot. That's the muscle that we use to pull the legs apart, so more of a lateral movement. But if that feels good in your body, you can roll a little bit longer. If your glutes are really tight, sit right on top of the tight spot and cross that leg over. So if I'm on the right side, I'm going to cross right leg over left. Find that little pressure point, that muscle knot, and just sit right on top of it for, you know, maybe 10, 20 seconds. Let the muscle, you might even notice the muscle just starts relaxing a little bit. It starts releasing just by giving it a little bit of time. Sometimes it's just a little bit too much sensation to sit right on top of it, so you could roll around a little bit, or you could just tip the body left to right over that tight muscle in your glute. So I know oftentimes we think of the foam roller as like a rolling pin, like we need to roll up and down on the foam roller, but you can just use it as a prop for some stretching as well. So a little massage just by moving your body. Your body's the rolling pin. So left and right, both glutes. Start with the glute max. Roll out that glute max. And then roll to the side and just touch on that glute med, the side hip. It might feel good, in fact, to roll down the side of the leg. There's some benefit in rolling straight down where the muscles of the leg connect with the IT band down the side of the leg. And I find a lot of relief actually when my quads are really tight, which they are today, the thigh muscle, to roll right down the side of the leg. And I'm pushing a lot of weight away from it because that side of the leg, there's a lot of sensation here. And then just kind of moving the roller, a couple little passes here, and then moving it down until you get down near the kneecap. So this right down by the kneecap is where the quads get really tight. So we're gonna focus on quads, but that might feel good to just start up at the hip while you're at glute med and just roll all the way down the side of the leg. So right and left, both sides, work on those glutes. Spend as much time as you need to on the glutes, and then move the roller behind the legs, rolling the hamstrings. So feet parallel, feet about hips width apart or so. And as you roll up and down on the back side of the leg, you'll be working on loosening up the hamstring, the hammies. That's where I like to start, from above the knee. Like, you don't have to roll right behind the joint. So above the joint, and then all the way up to the seat. But you'll notice that if you turn your heels in and your toes out, you might start to feel a little bit more. So we're just rotating our leg bones so that we can get all angles on the hamstrings. And then you could also turn toes and heels out, and you might actually also start to notice the adductor muscles getting rolled and massaged a little bit. So think about rotating leg bones as you roll the back side of the legs. So if you have real tight hamstrings, you might have a knot in the hamstrings. Put the leg where the knot is right on top of the roller and cross the other leg over. So we're going to compress that. Same thing as we did on the glutes. Just let it sit for a moment and let that muscle relax. You can coax it a little bit more by rocking a little side to side or maybe circling around. Notice also when you're trying to release that hamstring, are you tensing it even more? Or are you relaxing the muscle a little bit? So experiment with that. So that's a good way to loosen up tight hammies. So those hammies will be tight on the back end of the running. It's when your knee bends back like this. That's when you're going to feel that muscle. So depending on if you've been doing hills, uphills or downhills, you might feel that a little bit more on the hamstrings. So that's a good way to loosen those up, and the calves. So let's focus on the calves today. So I like to start by just doing some frog legs here. This is what I call it. There's probably a better term for it. But heels in, toes out. So you're bending and extending the leg a little bit with the hips open. Heels in, toes out. The leg bones are rotated open, and you're rolling the calves. And if you notice anything tight there, then pause at that point and you can log roll the legs. So notice my feet are flexed, and that means that I'm tensing the calves. And the shins, I might try relaxing the flex in the foot a little bit and see how that feels. It might not feel like you can target it quite as well. Then again, it might. So if you find that real tight spot, and so for me, I can feel it in my calf and also in my shin a little bit. I'm gonna rest right on top of it, and again, stack the other leg on top of it and just get a little more body weight right on top of it and roll around a bit. You can roll shins this way too. So I'm just turning to the side and really getting into the shin. You can roll up and down, so just lifting your seat off the mat. You can roll over the calves that way as well. Stretching the calves on the block when we put the toe up. That's a really good way though. Put the toe up on the block to stretch the back of the leg. So just put the toe up on something. Beautiful. All right, let's turn over. So now we're gonna work the front of the leg. So I'm gonna start just by sitting with neutral hips on my lower legs, toes turned under. This feels wonderful when your calves are really tight. It might feel, or your quads and your calves, to just sit here for a moment and just let these muscles warm a little bit. Let them stretch just a little bit here. You might massage them out a little bit too. And then once you're kind of used to that, we'll put the quads right on top of the roller. So it's like doing a forearm plank. Front of the thighs, those are the quadriceps. And then you can roll just by kind of tucking, bending and extending at your elbow. Just kind of roll the legs up and down over the roller. If your quads are really tight, slow way down. Just go super slow. Start with parallel feet. See how high up toward the pelvis you can go on both legs. How low down toward the kneecap you can go. Nice and slow, and then turn your toes in and your heels out so you're internally rotating your leg bone, and go all the way up to the pelvis, as high as you can get. Notice what you feel, and all the way down to the kneecap. So where the muscles come together right by the knee, that joint, they're going to get really, they just compact right there. So they're going to get tight right there. So you can pause right on top of any tight spot. And again, if that's where the tight spot is, I might just pause for a moment and say, oh my gosh, I'm tensing those muscles really tight. What would happen if I relaxed them a little bit? See how that feels. It might help a little bit. It might make it more tolerable. It might feel like it took the edge off a little too much. So again, you can stack the other leg right on top of it and just focus on one leg at a time. Stacking the other leg on top of the tight muscle in your quad is going to put a lot more body weight coming right down on top of that really narrow little spot. So it is pretty intense, but just one leg at a time. Then you can roll a little more to the side even. And you don't have to stack the legs to do one leg at a time. You could plant the other foot and just focus on above the kneecap and the outer part of the quad a little bit more, going up and down. And when you're focusing on just one leg at a time, you can get higher up to the pelvis as well, a little bit higher up. Like I can get all the way up and over the hip. So you might have a real tight spot up here at the top of the quad as well. And you can log roll the leg. You could tip the body away from the roller and toward the roller. Kind of log roll the muscle that way. You can move the roller down a little bit. So again, tight spots. Be creative. Think about ways to loosen up. And as your muscle warms a little bit and as you get used to all that intense sensation, you might just start to slow way down and just be still and let the body just rest right on top of the tight spot. And then pay attention, because if you let it rest for 20 seconds, even more, you could do longer than that. You might even do this for a couple minutes on the legs if they're really tight, but at least 20 seconds so that muscle can start to relax. You'll feel it if you're paying attention. Actually, the muscle fibers do start to loosen and actually release. And that's what we're going for here. It's pretty intense, but we want those muscles to release so that they're just not tight. So we can walk again, right? So that we can do stairs. So we can get up and down. So both legs, do your quads left and right. One leg at a time as well. So I'll focus on the other leg and talk about different ways you can roll the quad. So just lying down on, or just more of the inner thigh with the leg up and over the roller. And then you can roll the inner quad. So I'm kind of internally rotating the leg, the whole leg bone. So rather than parallel foot, I'm kind of turning the toe downward a little bit more. So that might feel good to just roll the inner quad. And again, if you're finding a tight spot on the quad, just let it rest right there. One leg at a time is just fine. And this is a lot easier to let the body rest on the earth. Just focus on one leg at a time. Beautiful. All right, so while we're working on this angle with the foam roller, you might come back to just sitting and see how that feels. Did it loosen some of these muscles up? While you're sitting like that, you might try tucking your toes under, stretching the bottoms of the feet. That's a really good way to start stretching the back side of the legs. And then lift your knees up off the mat and move the roller to the shins. Test this out. What does it feel like to just put all your body weight down right on top of those shin bones? Well, it might be a little too intense. Your shin bones are really close to the surface. There's not a lot of flesh right over the shin bones. So this doesn't work for everybody to roll right over the front of the legs. But if you can do that, it's interesting. Like I've done this where I've had really tight shins and I've tried using a soft foam roller so that it wasn't quite as intense on my shin bones, but I couldn't feel a massage in my shins. The muscle, it's not a real big muscle, so maybe just a little bit of tucking and untucking of the feet, the toes, while I'm sitting on top of the shins. So find the tight spot, stretch it out, sit right on top of that tight spot, cross the other shin over it, and let the body weight rest on top of it. So you can just kind of hang out, loosening up the shin. So same thing to the lower leg as the upper leg, to work on those shins. And as you do this, it might start to loosen some muscles up. If you come back to standing and try the block again, where you put the toes up on the block and then where you turn the toes under and stretch the front of the ankle, that might loosen it up enough to where that actually is enough, kind of a quick go-to. Beautiful. All right. So I'm going to set the foam roller aside now and grab the yoga strap. So here's a quick stretch. If you have a strap, you could use a resistance band. You could use just a small loop. You could use a big long resistance band, something stretchy, or I've got a yoga strap. I'm just going to use a yoga strap. The nice thing about a yoga strap, I guess, is you could make a little loop. You don't have to, but I'm going to put the ball of the right foot or the arch of the right foot in the strap use the right foot then. Right foot, right hand holds the strap, and then lie on your left side body. Let your head rest on the arm. Both knees are bent. Bend that right knee more, and just start to pull the strap up and over your shoulder. And more or less pull, strap up and over the shoulder, and you're gonna feel the hip flexor and the quad stretch out here. So this would be, well, this is a really nice warm-up. I don't know if you want to haul out your strap all the time, but this is like when we were standing and we did that little preliminary stretch, just holding the foot. Great quad stretch. This one you could hold. It's a yin yoga pose called cat pulling its tail, and you could just simply find a really good stretch here. So you could have a bigger back bend, and you'll get a kind of a stretch more up the whole front of the body, across the hip flexor and down the quad. Or you could tuck the pelvis in a little bit, so a little more neutral, and keep the pelvis tucked and bend the knee more. And then you're gonna feel just the hip flexor and the quad, a little less of the back bend. So if it feels like a little too much as a back bend, take the back bend out of it. You could hold this for, the magic when you're holding a yin pose, it happens after 2 minutes or 3 minutes. So you might just find this position and just kind of chill out for a little while. Let it stretch a little bit. So if you have real tight quads, real tight hips. This is the movement that runners and cyclists need more of, because we do a lot of this, tucking. We need more of this extension. So that's a great way to do it. You could do some bridging as well. All right, so do that on both sides. Now I'll do the left foot, arch of the foot. Left hand holds the strap. Lie on the right side body. Left knee bends, strap comes up and over the shoulder. Tuck in that pelvis, unless you want the back bend. Maybe you're working on back bending too. I'm just focusing primarily on the pelvis, so I've got my pelvis tucked, the front of the pelvis, the hip flexor. Get a good stretch there, and this is very similar to, it's exactly the stretch we're doing when we're doing a standing lunge. It's that leg, the thigh bone that's vertical, that's perpendicular from the earth. That's the stretch right here that we're getting on this left leg. So this is just a nice way. I mean, you could hold a lunge. That's an active stretch. You could hold a lunge for 2-3 minutes. Why not? Or you could just use this strap. Beautiful. So feel free to give that one a little bit more time. Other things that I'll talk about, if you do a lot of that repetitive movement, we're using those muscles in those joints in the same way over and over and over again. So it's really good to loosen up the muscles and to do other things with those joints too. So positions that you're doing with neutral hips, you want to do the opposite. So open hips. Now this is still flexion, but butterfly is a nice stretch. Let the hips drop open, right? So you could even interlock your fingers, let the elbows rest on the thighs. So again, I've got a lot of flexion in my hips, but I'm also getting the hips open here. You could also do this facing the earth. So this is another yin pose. This might feel good if you want to get the stretch all the way down your whole back body. You could just let the head relax as well. Start to feel that stretch in the neck. And if you wanted to go a little deeper down, you could bring your hands down to the lower legs, and you'll feel that all the way down, starting at the neck, all the way down the body. But think about this position, this open hip position with extension rather than flexion. And so last position here that I'll talk about is child's pose, but with wide open hips. So again, this is flexion. You could stretch it out this way, but then reach forward, plant your hands, and then come onto your hands and knees. Keep your toes connected, open hips, lower the hips toward the earth. This is a wonderful stretch for the front body. You might feel it a little in your hamstrings, the backside of the upper legs. But I like to just kind of move the body back and forth from child's pose, where you've got open hips and flexion, to this is kind of a modified upward facing dog or a cobra with open hips. So you're getting that hip extension as well. And you could consider this a passive pose. Maybe you just extend the legs out. It feels a little more intense when you bend the knee, so you get a little more stretch that way, a little more passive if you extend the legs out. Beautiful. So those are my ideas for you today for if you're a cyclist, a runner, a jogger, a hiker, a biker. Think about mimicking the movements before any exercise class. So if you're doing kind of a full body exercise, do all of those exercises that we did in the start, the quad stretch, the hamstring stretch, do a few little hip circles, do a few lunges, do a little bit of jogging. Next week, we'll focus on stretching and foam rolling for other repetitive things like pickleball, racquetball, tennis, ping pong. I don't know, like what are those repetitive motion where we're using our arms and our upper body and our legs a little bit more, where we're really actively jumping into things, right? So that'll be our focus next week. Good to be with you here today, friends. Until next time, be well.
I'm Sarah, and this is Cardio Dance. Are you guys ready to work out? Let's do it.
I woke up feeling like this gon' be my day. I got that poppin' fire every step I take. Living that wild life.
To the bag. Go. That's where we want to go.
Last 10 seconds. I'm right here with you. Let's do it. Welcome to the Y. My name is Erin. I'm Jennifer. My name is Linda.
My name is Tommy, and today we're going to do a quick step routine.
We feeling like we can conquer the world today?
I wish you all could smell it. It smells so good.
Time. We get stronger in my world. We're going to do it again.
We'll see you again.